Hello everyone, and welcome to the first lesson of my brand new Prealgebra course, designed to take you from the very basics to math mastery. My name is Sid, and I'm going to be teaching this course. So today we're going to be starting strong with the one thing that causes more mistakes than anything else in math, PEMDAS, also known as BODMAS, PEDMAS, or anything else depending on where you're from. So if you've argued about whether 12 divided by 3 times 2 is 2 or 8, buckle up. We're about to break it down the right way. And yeah, number lines are making a comeback too. Let's dive in. Alright, so what is PEMDAS? First things first, you've probably heard of it. Sounds complicated, but it's just a simple code to help you remember the order of operations. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. Here's how it works. So parentheses go first as always. So let's start out looking at the first question. 2 times 3 plus 1 equals, so 2 times 3 plus 1. So we automatically look and see a pair of parentheses right here. So 3 plus 1 equals 4. And so we can replace that 3 plus 1 with 4. 2 times 4 equals 8, as shown here. So another problem that's a trap on the bottom, shown on the bottom, is 2 times 3 plus 1. Since there's no parentheses there, we don't start with parentheses. And if you look farther down, it shows that after parentheses, we have exponents. And we see no exponents in that problem either. But then we do see multiplication. So we start with the multiplication, 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 1 equals 7. So that is a common trap since there's no parentheses there. Alright. Let's move on. So next, exponents, they're the sneaky ones. So let's go on to the second problem. 3 plus 2 to the third times 2. So we have to evaluate that. So we look and we don't see any pair of parentheses. So we move on to exponents. So immediately our eyes start drifting to 2 to the third. So 2 to the third equals 8. So we automatically replace it, so it becomes 3 plus 8 times 2. But since multiplication and division come before addition and subtraction, we see multiplication comes before addition and have to evaluate 8 times 2 first. So 16 plus 3, which is 19. So the mistake is people tend to add the 3 plus 2 together to create 5 before cubing the result. So we do not see a pair of parentheses there, so we have to just move on to exponents. So that's how you avoid the traps and solve these types of problems. Alright, let's move on to multiplication and division. So our example here is 12 divided by 3 times 2. So people's minds, since M comes before D in PEMDAS, or just naturally, tend to do multiplication before division for some odd reason. But when multiplication and division are the next to be evaluated, after we've already solved all our parentheses and exponents, we have to do it from left to right. So we start with 12 divided by 3. So obviously that's the first one that we evaluate. And we get 4 times 2, and that's obviously 8. So the mistake is people tend to do 3 times 2 first, which is 6, and then 12 divided by 6, which is 2, which is incorrect. Okay, now let's go on. So I want to teach you guys about something called the double negative rule. So let's say I have a problem here that's 4 minus negative 3. So since there's 2 negatives, we see 2 negatives, and this automatically evaluates the 4 plus 3. Since if you're subtracting a negative number, you're just adding a number. Okay, so we're going to be seeing that later on in today's lesson. Alright, let's just clear this up. Alright, let's move on. So let's do a quick foundational problem. Alright, so I'm going to give you guys a second to pause the video and try this on your own. Alright, I'm going to start. So, first we have to go through the steps of PEMDAS. So, let's see. Do we have any parentheses? Oh, there's parentheses right here. So, let's evaluate 7 minus 2. And this is equal to 5. So, okay. So, now we have the equation 4 times 5 squared divided by 10 plus 3. Sorry, got cut off at the edge of the page, but yeah. And this is a divided sign. Alright, so let's see. Do we have any more parentheses? So I don't see any more parentheses, but what I do see is exponents. So we have the 5 squared right here. 5 squared equals 25. So we have 4 times 25 divided by 10, and then plus 3. So obviously we see both division and multiplication here as underlined. So, okay, so I'm going to use this white space up here. So we have to go from left to right. When we have both multiplication and division remaining. So the first one is 4 times 25. So that's 100, 100. Then we do 100 divided by 10 equals 10. And then, finally, our very last operation is to add 3. 10 plus 3. And this evaluates to 13, which is our final answer. Okay? So, let's get this cleared up. Alright. Let's move on to the next problem. I'm going to give you guys a chance to do that on your own while I clear up. Alright, I'm going to go over it now. So 5 minus negative 2 to the third over 4 times 2 minus 5 plus 1. So how do we evaluate this? So this seems like a difficult problem to approach, but let's see how we can do this. Alright, so the common misconception is here. We see a negative sign. We see negative 2 is surrounded by negative signs. But since negative 2 is just an integer and it's not an operation, that doesn't count as parentheses within our equations, and rather those parentheses are just being used to format the equation. So we should move on to exponents. So we see here, negative 2 to the third is equal to negative 8. So our equation moving on is 5 minus negative 8 over 4 times 2 minus 5. And then we'll save the plus 1 for later. Alright, so now with division problems. So a tricky challenge is that when we get into this situation, we have to assume that, so since there's a division sign separating the top and the bottom, we have to assume that each of these are parentheses. So let's set this up in a different way to help you guys understand better. So 5 minus negative 8, I'm just going to write 5 plus 8 because you guys should all know about the double negative rule. 5 plus 8 divided by 4 times 2 minus 5. So you see how this equation on the bottom equates to the equation on the top because we had to add parentheses to both sides of the equation. So now we have to evaluate the parentheses. So 5 plus 8 equals 13, and 4 times 2 equals 8 because we do multiplication first. 8 minus 5 equals 3. Alright, so yeah, okay, so this is a little bit of a weird problem because we have fractions involved. But alright, let's just keep going. So we have 13 over 3 plus 1 as our final answer, but we should simplify that further. Since 1 is equal to 3 divided by 3, 13 over 3 plus 3 over 3 equals 16 divided by 3, and that's our final answer. All right. So I'm going to move down so you guys can check out the next problem. So, yeah, pause the video if you want to solve it. Alright, let's move on. So, real world application. A pizza has 8 slices. Okay, so we have a pizza. Let's do it the visual way this time. 8 slices. Sorry, my slices aren't the best. 8 slices. You eat 1/4, then give 2 slices to a friend. What fraction remains? So this is obviously a fractions problem. So you eat 1/4. So we have 8, okay? And then you eat 8 times 1/4, right? So, and then you then give 2 slices to a friend. So minus 2. So that's how many slices you have remaining. So, yeah. So that's how many slices are gone from the 8 pizza. So we do 8 minus 8 times 1/4 minus 2. So this is our equation right here. So first, let's evaluate what's in the parentheses. So if the parentheses isn't just one operation, since we have a multiplication and a subtraction sign here, we just do another PEMDAS loop inside the parentheses, starting with the multiplication in this case. So 8 times 1/4 equals 2, and then, oh, sorry. So this should be a plus, actually. So, and then 2 plus 2 equals 4. So now we do 8 minus 4 equals 4. So that means there's 4 slices remaining, or 4 slices gone out of 8, which means there are 8 minus 4 slices gone, which means there's 4 out of 8 slices remaining, which means our final answer, simplified, is 1/2. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the number